At Catch the Fire, we really value family and we really want to support you to do family life well during this current situation. I'm Laura Densham, I'm one of the lead pastors at Catch the Fire in Manchester. Alongside my sister Becky, my friend Natalie, we are doing a project which will be a series of videos talking about homeschooling. The three of us were home educators before the lockdown, so we really want to share our experiences with you, tips and helpful hints that perhaps you might find helpful. So we hope you enjoy this series.
Hello and welcome back. Today we want to talk a bit about what homeschooling looks like normally. I know there's a few people who have approached us and just expressed an interest in home educating after lockdown. And so we just thought it would be really good to kind of talk a bit about our journeys, why we decided to homeschool, but also what homeschool looks like day to day for us, because it's been very different for us in lockdown as well. So we just hope that this video encourages you. Again, if you have any questions, please email in with your questions and we'll try and get them answered. So let's begin just talking a bit about our journeys and why we decided to homeschool. So Laura, shall we start with you?
Yes, you can start with me. We have always kind of in the back of our minds thought about homeschooling, but never really thought we'd actually do it. And I think I had a lot of fear that I wasn't smart enough or good enough to be able to educate my children well enough for the world. But it's always been something that I've been intrigued about and interested in. But we kind of accidentally started, or so we thought, because the kids were all in a school here in Manchester, a lovely school. We loved it. I was a governor at the school and we were quite involved. But we ended up having to move out of our house because the landlord was selling the house, and we had another house lined up to move into, and that fell through, and then another house and that fell through, and then another house and that fell through. Happened 3 times. So we ended up having to move back to St Anne's to live with my husband's parents. And so I had to take the kids out of school. We knew we were moving back to Manchester, so there was no point in putting them into another school there. So we thought, well, we'll just homeschool for however long it takes. And we ended up staying with them for 3 or 4 months. And it started a lot like lockdown has, where the school was sending work home for us to do with the kids. So we just kind of got on with that as much as we could. It was quite different, where one kid got a lot of work sent home, and then one of the others hardly got anything sent home, and so it was kind of hard trying to balance that at first. But we ended up really enjoying it. We just loved spending time with each other and getting to learn together. And just having the flexibility of it all as well. And I think I kind of realised how much I disliked the routine that we were in before, where it was like get up and shout at the kids because they're moving too slow and we're running late, and so it's all a mad rush, and then drop them off at school and then feeling really bad because I just shouted at them all morning, and then picking them up from school and then having to do homework and have tea and then bath and then bed and then start all over again. And at this time in our lives, we were planting Catch the Fire Manchester as well, so our weekends were very busy too. And I just felt like excuse me, I just felt like we weren't really having that quality time together, and we weren't really having that time where we could really sow our values into our kids, and really nurture the things that we saw that God was doing in them and that he'd created them to be. And so yeah, we started kind of accidentally, and then the more that we prayed about it, the more we felt God was saying, I've set you up for this, and this is actually what I want you to continue doing. So we sat down with the kids and we said, well, this when we had a house to move back into Manchester. We sat down with the kids and said, do you want to go back to school or do you want to carry on with home education? And they all said, we want to carry on, which was great because I didn't want to have that argument. The only thing was that they missed their friends, but we have kept in touch with their friends, and we have play dates every now and again with them, which is great. But it was God was just on it, and that's how we started.
Yep. At the beginning, where I just put the children into school, like, because that's what everybody does, and I hadn't been thinking of I'm going to home educate at all. I was working, my husband was working, so the children went to school as you do. When I had my third child, I took a career break from work because I think it was the cost of having 2 of them in nursery or something like that was basically my wage. So I thought, okay, let's take a career break. But then again, they went into school. Annabelle went into the school nursery. George was in year 1, I think. Daniel was in year 2. And I just began to think of the idea that I would like to home educate, but I don't particularly know where it came from, but I read around the topic. I remembered a lady in church used to home educate when I was growing up, but that was really the only person that I knew at the time was home educating. What happened? Oh, yes. So I read into it. I wrote this pros and cons list out, which then I sat down to discuss with my husband. And he was like, absolutely not. He said, that is for, people who are against schools and people who, he just had this idea that it was for strange people. And no, he said, no, that's not for us. No, we're not to do that. So I thought, all right, well, I'm certainly not going to do this on my own. So I just put it on the back burner, as they say. And then it was a year later when it came back as a real strong desire that I want to do this. And I think the reason is because in the school holidays, I felt like after about a week or so, I felt like the rhythm of our family was back to how I enjoyed it being. Like I felt like, they weren't bickering with one another. It was a nice atmosphere. And then they'd go back into school after the school holidays, and then it would be, like you were saying, Laura, this rush of morning, just about rushing, getting out. And they came back, they were exhausted. I remember people would ask for play dates, and I'd say, they're wiped out actually after school. They just needed to, basically we'd put Fireman Sam on or something, and they'd just sit there for the first 30 minutes just, I don't know what it was. They just needed to readjust back to being at home, basically. And I started to notice this pattern in them, and I thought, this doesn't seem right to me. It shouldn't be like this, really. And I used to hear other parents say, I can't wait till the school holidays are over. And I was thinking, no, I love the school holidays. That's my favourite bit. So having them home was we just really enjoyed that. So anyway, I'm not going to go in the whole story because I think I've covered it before in another interview, but when I readdressed the topic with my husband, instead of going back through my wonderful pros and cons list, I just said what I thought I heard God saying on the topic, which was, it is the right thing to do. So when I had this desire again to do it, I was praying and I said, is it the right, should we home educate? Is it, where is this coming from? And I just heard the phrase, it is the right thing to do. So I thought, okay. So I went to Geordie and I said, who's my husband? And I said, instead of saying the whole list, I just said, look, I just think it's the right thing to do. And then he just turned around and said, so do I. So that was it. I was like, right, let's do this. So that's how we started.
That's so good. When God tells you it's the right thing to do, you can't really argue with that, can you? We were the same. We really felt like God was telling us to home educate. I thought about it before I'd even had kids. Actually, just thought about home educating. My husband was home educated, so just seeing what his life looked like, what his upbringing looked like, and him and all his siblings are just incredible people. So I was like, there's something on this home education. But we also got lots of prophetic words about traveling as a family. And I always thought, when we do that, when we travel as a family, that's when I'll home educate, because I'll have to, because we'll be on the road. And God just challenged me on it and was like, well, why wait? Why not start preparing for that word and partnering with me in that word that I've given you? Prepare for what I've spoken over your life. So that was the first, and first and foremost, we do it because God told us to do it. But also there's been other things kind of that's confirmed that decision. And I actually have a really long list of reasons why we home educate. And I have nothing against schools. I had a really good schooling experience. But just the same as you, Natalie, one of the main things was we just love quality time as a family. And Eli was at full-time nursery before he started school. And I just realised how much quality time we didn't really have in the week. He would come back from nursery just absolutely exhausted, and our quality time would be either him just like flat out unresponsive because he was so tired, or him playing up because he was so tired, so me having to send him for time out, and then it would be dinner time and bed. And it just kind of hit me that this is our quality time in a day. And also quality time with his brother. His brother would all day be like, can we pick Eli up now? Can we go get him? Can we go get him? And then when Eli would come home, he just had no energy to play. So just seeing their relationship, like it was heartbreaking, because Josiah was just so desperate to play with his brother. And since home educating, I've just seen such a difference in their relationship and in our relationship because of that quality time that we've had. And that's one of the things we love about home education, is all the family time that we have. But also, same as what you were saying, Laura, about the values. Like everybody has values as a family, and you decide how you want to bring up your children and what values you want to install into them. And I kind of realized that sending Eli off to nursery, he's seeing more of the teachers in a day than he was seeing me, and their influence over him was more than my influence over him. And just realized that if I'm wanting to install our values as a family into him, then I need the time to do that. And it really hit me over Easter. He went to a nursery that was attached to a school, and it's a Catholic school. And I thought, great, like they're going to be talking about Jesus, and obviously that is such a massive part of our faith. And they're going to be talking about the cross. And he came home talking about the Easter Bunny, which is something that we've never really talked about, because we haven't had a need to, because we know the real reason that we celebrate Easter. But that just kind of hit me that, like, oh, but this isn't what I want him to be learning about Easter. I want him to be learning about the real reason of Easter. So there's loads of different things that kind of hit me that I was like, oh, it's just confirming that home education is for us as a family. It's not for everyone. We don't judge people that choose to send their children to school, because everybody does family life differently. But it's definitely the right thing for us as a family. And also because we half our family live in Canada, we were able to go to Canada for 7 weeks last year, which was amazing for us. And obviously I don't think any school would be happy with you taking your child out of school for 7 weeks. So just that being a part of our life, we're always back and forth to Canada, and having the flexibility to do that when we can has just been great. But yeah, as I said, I have a really, really long list, but I think I'll stop there, otherwise it'll just be me talking for the whole of this session. So for those people who are thinking about home educating after lockdown, I know I've just been thinking of a few questions that people might have. I know I had a lot of questions at the beginning, and still do have a lot of questions now. But one of the main questions was, how do I start? How do I start home educating? Where do I begin? It's this whole new world. So what do I start with? Any wisdom on that?
Okay, so practically speaking, if they're in school, you need to deregister them from the school if you decided, which is basically, so when my husband said yes, I immediately looked online for a template of a deregistration letter. I thought I'll get this filled in and printed in so he can sign it before he changes his mind. But basically there's a template online, and you fill in the school name. It says you want to, basically you are requesting to take responsibility for your child's education. That's what the letter's for. So you fill in that letter, send it to the office of the school, and that really is that. They will probably ring you up and say, what's the matter? Why don't you want to come to school anymore? But really that's, you are within your rights in this country anyway to be able to do that. And that's as straightforward as it is. So if they're in school, that's what you need to do. And then you start, as we basically started the next day. So I think I sent it on a Friday, and the Monday, that was us being responsible for their education, which, yes, is terrifying, but it is quite straightforward. And then, if you've done it that way, you will probably then be known by the local education authority, who will then come and visit you probably, or request to visit, or you don't necessarily have to have them into your home. You could meet them in a coffee shop somewhere. But what they will want to know, the question they need to answer is an education taking place in this family? So they're not going to specify what that needs to look like, but they want to know, is some form of education taking place? Because you have said, I'm taking responsibility for my children's education. So what does that look like? And that's basically what they need to know. And yeah, that's the bit you do. If they're not in school, I don't know. Both of your children were in school, weren't they? I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, mine were in school, so I'm not sure the other way around.
For Eli, we'd actually applied for a school already, and then we had to decline the place and put a reason why. And I said, because we're going to home educate. And then we got a letter in the post saying, just wanted to confirm that you're home educating and organise a meetup, like you said, Natalie. So yeah, you will receive a letter of them making contact. So yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks, Natalie. One of the main things that I was like at the very beginning was what resources can I use, what curriculum, because there's so much out there that it can become quite overwhelming. And I remember finding this amazing curriculum, and it was all like day-to-day plans, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to use. Then looked at the end and it was like £400 for the year, and I was like, oh, maybe not then. So what resources have you used? What curriculum do you use? Yeah. Laura?
That was definitely the thing that overwhelmed me the most when we started, of resources. And it was because there were so many options out there, and piece of advice I just kept getting was just pick what works for your family. And at that point I was like, I don't know, I'm new to this, I don't know what works for our family. But I also got some advice that said, like, you might pick something and do it for a season and then find this isn't working anymore, and then choose something else. And that baffled me a little bit, but actually coming up 2 years into it, that's what we've done. We've tried something for a bit, and maybe it has worked, but then a couple of months down the line it's not working so much anymore, and we've swapped and done something differently. And I'm constantly assessing if something's working or not, and tweaking it so that it does work for our family. But also you're always in different seasons of life, and maybe work's a bit busier for this couple of months, so you need to use something else. So there is so much out there. You just need to get online and look for the kind of thing that you're after. And there's a lot of free resources as well, because I was the same. I'd find things and then it was like ridiculously out of our budget to pay for. But yeah, there's a lot of different free things out there too. So we started with, we started with the work that school was sending home, but when we started officially doing it ourselves, we were looking at, we had some Schofield and Sims workbooks. So I got them, I think they were on offer in Amazon. So we got a load for the different ages and the teacher's manual as well, because that's great. Need that. Which was great. Just having all the information there. Here's the booklets, and the kids just worked their way through those. But then I stumbled upon easy peasy all-in-one homeschooling, which it just says it in the name really of what it is. The only thing is that it's American, so it's this lady has started it up, and she's got 5 kids that she's home educated, and so this is all the stuff that she's done with her kids. But she's set up a website that you just pick what level your child is at, and then and for each subject, and then the day plans are already set out for you, which I found really helpful, because I'm not very organized, and she'd done all that for me basically. So sometimes, because it's American, a lot of the terms they use can be American, and the kids are like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, this is what it means. So sometimes we stumble upon those kind of difficulties, but each day each child has I think it's 7 subjects, but it's just like a couple of questions per subject, or maybe one of the subjects is starting a project and you continue it each day. So we've been doing that since lockdown, because life got a lot more crazy for us when lockdown started, with our work, as me and my husband pastor a church. So we had to get everything online. So that was a lot to do. So it was a lot easier for the kids to just be able to open computers or tablets or whatever and just be able to sign in, and the work is there, and then if they need help they can ask for help from one of us. And also I've noticed that they help each other as well, because they've done the work previously than that the other child is on. So I found that really helpful. But I think the last few weeks I've again assessed that and found that it was actually quite a lot of work for them to get done in the day, which was fine for my oldest. She's in year 6 now, and she could just fly through the subjects. But my 3rd child, it would take him a lot longer, because he doesn't enjoy writing, for instance. So, answering a couple of questions, writing is just hard work to get him to do that. So I decided, well, if you're young, I think I decided if they were in infants. No, I didn't decide that. I can't remember but I just said, like, you just do half a day, and when you've done half a day you can finish. And my oldest said, well, I think I'm going to carry on with the full day, because I know I can do it. Because we try and do schooling in the morning. They'll sit down and do their work, and then after lunch we'll do a Bible study, and then the afternoon they can do something creative or go and play, or we'll go out to the park or do some sports or something. And so yeah, I've enjoyed that. But again, I've assessed it recently and then gone, actually it just seems like we're sitting down and doing a lot of sitting down work, and I felt like I was missing out on a bit more of the joy of what home ed is, and the flexibility and the creativity that you can run with. So on Mondays and Fridays I do something different. So and Tuesdays is our family day. So it's Wednesday and Thursday they'll do the EP, and we'll try and get through as many of those subjects. And then on Friday we do geography, and we'll do something related to devotions or spending time with God, journaling, reading the Bible, something creative, making things or whatever. And I'm going to let Natalie talk about the geography book because she recommended it to me and it's brilliant. And then on a Monday, I was overcome with mum guilt of going, they're not reading enough, we need to read more. So Monday, I literally decided last week, I think Monday we're going to just really focus on reading and just spend the day reading together, reading to each other, reading on our own, and just really focus on that, because that's just a brilliant skill. So over to you, Natalie, to tell everyone about the geography book.
Yeah. So when we first started, one of the reasons I home educated, which I didn't mention before, was that Daniel had lost a bit of confidence. He'd come home saying, I'm no good at maths, you know, I can't do this. And so when we got home to home educate, that was on my mind. I was thinking, right, I need to first of all restore the love of learning for him. So to go straight into doing, say, school books, which I did try, I will be honest, it didn't work basically because he'd lost his confidence. So we just put that to one side and thought, as long as we're reading, as long as we would need to go out a lot as well. So basically he was 7, George was 6, Annabelle was 4. And I didn't know anything about home education at all. I didn't know how to do it. I knew that possibly a whole curriculum, like you said, is very expensive. I thought, well, we can't do that. I've given up my job to home educate here, so I need to be conscious that, you know, I'm not just buying in this whole curriculum. And I met with some people I knew who were home educating, and I sat with them, had a cup of tea, talked about what they were doing while the children played. And I spent time doing that at first, just gleaning knowledge from people like, what does this look like? What is home education really? And one of the things that struck me the most was that it looks different for everybody, which we've said before. You can't come to me and say, how do you do home education? Because there's no one way to do it. There's many ways to do it. So I took that away from those times with other parents, and we started, basically, my son is also extremely sociable, and I was conscious that people always say, but what about socialization, take them from school? So being super conscious of that, I thought, right, I need to find out where all these groups are. We're going to try them all. So we just went for it. We went to everything we found, whether it was gymnastics. We didn't do rock climbing, but that was one. There was philosophy groups. There was athletics. There was French, Spanish clubs. It was, in the Home Ed network, there was hundreds of clubs going on. So we thought, right, we'll travel around them all. We'll try them all, and then, we'll whittle down the ones that we think would work for us. Also, again, bearing in mind cost, because usually there's a cost involved. So we did that, and that was good. From those things, what hit me was the age ranges. So you'd have very young children and teenagers doing the same at the athletics group we went to. We walked in and there's this big group of teenagers, and I was a little bit daunted, to be honest, because my boys were sort of 6 and 7, and these guys, they walked up to them and they went, come on, we'll show you what to do, and off they went. And I was like, wow, if my children grow up to be like that, I'll be quite happy, because I was expecting them to be looking down at them like, what you young whippersnappers doing year, and they were so welcoming to them. And that's athletics is something we still do now. So that's what I did at the beginning. I basically, on the back of my son's lost his confidence and he's very sociable, I just searched, went around every group and found what worked for our family, like we were saying before. And then gradually, when we'd whittled down the groups that we wanted to do, I then incorporated our formal work, as we call it, around those times. So, for example, we prefer to work in the morning, but athletics is on Monday morning, so we can't do that. So we need to work in the afternoon. So I sort of built it up from there. So I chose the groups, the activities we were doing, put them in the timetable of the week, and then incorporated things like geography, which I haven't spoken about. Geography, the books we're using is there's a photographer called Peter Mendel. I'm going to say Mendelssohn, but I think it's Menzel, isn't it? Peter Menzel? I think it's Peter Menzel. And he's wrote 2 books that I know of called Material World and Hungry Planet. And what he does, he introduces geography by looking at a family in a particular country. So he's gone all around the world. He's selected a family and he looks at their life. You know, what do the parents do? What do they eat? Hungry Planet's all about what they eat. You know, how life is so different in the different or similar, depending which country you're looking at. So we approached looking at geography from that way, which has been great. We've worked through the Material World book and now we're on Hungry Planet. So that type of thing, we bring those things in little by little. If they didn't work, then we'd say, right, let's drop that now. This isn't working for us. Let's try something else. So even when you find your own way, you'll change your own way as well as your children grow, as life changes. You will try different things. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be fluid with what you're doing. To try and incorporate all that's out there. I think also we took big advantage of the fact that National Trust places and playgrounds are empty because everyone's in school. So we went there, we used those places a lot, which has been great. That's one of the big benefits. But then when it is school holidays, they don't like to go to the playgrounds because they think there's too many people. You know, we don't want to queue for the slide. We're not used to that. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered the question there, but back to Becky.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. Loving all the wisdom and the helpful hints. I think the main thing to take on board is that you don't have to have it all together. When you're starting out, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have even a plan for the next year. A lot of it is you kind of, as you say, Natalie, you have to be flexible, and your children all learn differently. So I think at the beginning it's figuring out how best your child learns and seeing what works and what doesn't work. I mean, for us at the moment, we're also using the Schofield and Sims workbooks for Eli. But as soon as Josiah starts school, that's probably going to look different again, because then I'm going to be teaching 2 children at different levels. So it's you just have to be flexible and try different things and find what works for you. I think it's good to mention as well, something that really hit me was when you're home educating, you can probably teach in 2 hours the same as what your child would learn in a whole day at school, because it's a one-to-one learning. You're able to kind of work at their pace, and they learn better because they're able to process what they're learning. You can see what they're struggling with and what they've really got. They've I'm tired. what they've understood and what they might be struggling with. So you know that you can spend a bit more time on the things that they're struggling with. Whereas in a classroom setting, it's obviously a bit harder to do that because there's so many more children. So it's worth noting that you can get done in a morning what they would take all day to learn at school. So it gives you the freedom to do other things, to do classes, social times. I think the advice that I was given when I started out back from my mother-in-law was find community. And that's the main thing. Find community, and that's what I've done, and that's what's really helped me is for me as a parent to have that support, to have that encouragement, to have people, as you said, Natalie, that you can lean on and draw wisdom from, but also for social outlet for your children. And you know, a lot of the resources I found and the community that I found is through word of mouth. I even got a phone call from my nurse who, she was like, oh, I was just chatting to someone who wants to home educate. Can I give her your number? And that's how we connected. And it's just through word of mouth as well that you're connecting with different people and different resources. And it's a really fun journey. So don't put pressure on yourself to have it all together at the beginning. Just learn as you go and enjoy the ride. Laura, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that also I think sometimes we need to get our mind, for those people who are thinking of taking their kids out of school, we have to get our minds out of the school system and just remember that kids naturally learn, they naturally want to learn because they're inquisitive, and learning doesn't have to look like it looks like at school. So I was just thinking then about the things that we would do in a normal week when lockdown isn't going on. One thing that our church is involved in is called the Bread and Butter Project, where they provide food for, I think you get 3 bags of food for £7 or something, and people in the community anyone can sign up to it and just come and get 3 bags of food for super cheap. And they do it at the church building where we have our services. And so my husband has started serving them and helping them out there. And then the kids really got excited about it and wanted to get involved. So then every Wednesday, my youngest would be at nursery, and the 3 older ones would just go and help, and they would pack bags. And one of my daughters was on the welcome desk, and she'd be like doing a register and checking people in and then giving them instructions about where they needed to go. And one of them was counting the money and sorting all that side of things. And I'm like, this is brilliant because this is real life, and they're learning maths, and they're learning how to give instructions, and they're learning how to serve and how to connect with community. They're talking to all different kinds of people and all different ages and different generations of people, and I really loved that, because that's not something that you would do in school, and it's an opportunity for them to learn so many life skills, but in the real world. And so there's things like that's the joy of home ed as well, that you can just get involved in, and your kids can get involved in, that doesn't look like sitting down and doing maths equations type thing.
Yeah, it's really good. I think I would recommend as well, if you're thinking about home educating, to have a look in your community what sorts of things are available for your children to get involved in, like that. And there's so many classes, as Natalie was saying. Like, I was amazed. I didn't know how big the home education community was until we started home educating. And I was like, wow, there's so much to do, and there's different parents sort out trips as well to museums and different things like that. So I would recommend. We found a lot of people on Facebook and different Facebook groups that would advertise the different classes in the area and advertise the school trips. So I would recommend looking on Facebook for that. Is there any other advice you could give for people in terms of classes, in finding classes, finding community?
So, well, we live in Manchester, so Manchester has, there's, like you say, on Facebook, and then there are networks as well. And there's one in Stockport, and I presume there's one, I imagine it, in each city. So what people tend to do is you post on these networks and you'll say, you know, I've just started home educating, I'm interested in what groups are going out there. And then you will get replies, it's basically other parents. So you'll get reply from other parents about what's going on in your area. So if you're not on Facebook, like I'm not, although when we started home educating, I was on Facebook, but I almost got inundated with that there was so much to do in home education. I felt like if I wasn't doing everything, I was missing out. I was like, oh, you know, we need to go to all these things. But it is amazing what's on offer that you've just got no idea until you begin home educating. But these networks are sort of, I think you call them email groups. It was a Yahoo group, but then they've moved away from Yahoo. Now it's a Google group, I think. Now that's a good resource. That's a good place to go. You can get advice there as well. If you've come into it, if you say, you know, my child has special needs. Does anyone have any advice on what to do? That's a place you can ask those questions. Again, it's just other parents. There's nobody else, involved in that group. But it has been really useful. And if you want to start a group, like my boys love basketball, so we started a basketball group. And basically, you just say, we're starting a basketball group. We found a venue. My husband's the coach. Anyone want to come? And then, people turn up, and that's a group started. And if you've got a passion for something, you can use this forum or Facebook to start your own groups as well. And we used to like playing chess, so we started a chess club that then became a boards game club that then just became this big social meet. It was just in a youth hall of a church. And again, that was just a social meet-up place. So it's a sort of go-to point. Wherever you are in the country, you'll need to find that if you can. And the best way to find it is to find someone already home educating, because they'll probably know how to access that.
Yeah, that's really good. I think for us, classes have been really good for Eli. Excuse me. I think one of the main worries people have about entering into home education is, will my children get that social input? And these classes have been amazing because as I said before, you're getting support from other parents and connecting with other parents, but also your children are getting that social outlet. And also, with athletics that all our children go to, that's a class where you can drop them off. And they're getting a bit of independent time as well. So yeah, I would definitely recommend looking into classes in your community. And it's really fun kind of figuring out what your children love to do as well. What brings them life? What do they enjoy doing? And trying out the different classes, so they can find those things that they love to do. I just wanted to mention, to go back onto resources, that there's also the national curriculum online. If you're struggling with what to teach, where your kids would be up to in school. I know, Laura, you kind of followed that at the beginning. Do you want to just say a little bit about that? I just wanted to touch a bit more on what resources to use. That's okay.
Yeah, so I would look at the national curriculum just to see, because I think I was afraid that I was going to miss things that they were learning at school, which was, my head was still in school. But I actually found it quite overwhelming because there was so much. So I started with just one subject and was looking at English, I think, and for my oldest daughter. But then I think through just doing our own thing, I then look back at it and go, yeah, actually she's learnt that just from reading, or she's learnt that from when we went to this, I don't know, when we studied this poetry and stuff or whatever. So I think if you wanted to follow the national curriculum and follow what they're doing at school, then it's all available online. But I would encourage you to just branch out a bit and just enjoy the joys of home education, where you don't have to follow a structure so tight, but just get to, because I think I really want my kids to enjoy learning, and I think when I am too strict on making sure they've learnt this and this, then it just feels like school for them but at home, which isn't the point, because if that's the point, I may as well just send them to school. But the point is to enjoy it, to spend time together, to learn together. You know, we love going to museums and learning like that, because we love to be out and about and that kind of thing. So I think if you're studying art or something, then go to an art museum and learn through that way, learn, you know, creatively. So
yeah, that's really helpful. I think probably my biggest fear starting out was, am I doing Eli an injustice? Am I teaching him enough? Am I up to date with the schools? I found this website, The School Run, which kind of tells you what they're learning in schools at that time, which was helpful to me, because I was like, okay, I'm keeping up with the schools. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't want to get so caught up in what they're doing in schools that you're missing why you're home educating in the first place, because you don't want to steal the joy from from home educating. And there's so many different ways that you can learn, and home education gives you the flexibility and the freedom to learn that way. And on that note, were there any fears that you had going into home education, and how did you overcome those fears?
I had many fears starting out, and I still do have many fears, to be honest. I think that's quite a big topic, where actually a lot of us will have a lot of fears because we want the best for our kids. So I think we should continue this conversation in the next video, and just invite people to let us know their fears and their concerns about home education, so that we can really discuss that well and bring some insight as much as we can. And yeah, we don't want to live in fear. We want to get rid of all those fears, so it'd be good to discuss that in detail.
Yeah, that's great idea. So if you have any questions, any concerns, anything you would like us to discuss, then please email in, and we will discuss them in the next video. So thanks for joining us. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching. We hope that was really useful for you. We're going to be placing links to any of the resources that we talked about in the video in the description. Also, if you have any questions or anything you'd like us to discuss, we will try our best to answer them. Just email us at manchester@catchthefire.com.